Good afternoon, Mom. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Mdcorral, and I am tasked to do the first part of our report. Our report is all about program evaluation, and I'm here to present the historical evolution of program evaluation. So the objective of my report is focused on the historical evolution of program evaluation, and I want to define program evaluation first before proceeding to the major part of my report. Scriven said that defined program evaluation as judging the worth of something or taking the merit of the product of a process. And according to Gusky, it is a systematic process of determining the value of program, curriculum, and strategy of a particular process. So we have 7 historical evolution of program evaluation: age reforms, the age of efficiency and testing, and then we have the Tylerian age, the age of innocence, the age of development, the age of professionalization, and the age of expansion and integration. And this is what we're enjoying now here in the present. So the first one is the age of reform. It happened started in 1792 until the 1900s. It marks the quantitative approach of William Parrish, and in school, the scores of the students were used to assess the effectiveness of the teacher. And it is very much similar to what we term now as our psychometrics. So at that point in time, experts said that Parrish tried to revolutionize the way of testing in institutions or organizations. So there were 2 reasons. Program evaluation discipline for 2 reasons. First, initial steps in developing psychometrics. And second one is questions were designed to measure competence, just like rhetorical. And in that period of time, the Industrial Revolution also happened, and there was uniformity of manufacturers. So when you say uniformity of manufacturers, it is very much the set standards and rules in institutions and organizations are uniform. There's conformity of materials. The pupil score as a testing tool in measuring schools. We have the laissez-faire philosophy by Bentham, and we also have the humanitarian philosophy of philanthropy. So at this point in time, what was happening in Great Britain and Europe, there was also a huge education reforms. So laws were submitted or billed for the poor, for the hospital and orphanages. Policies had been attempted to also create reforms in the field of education. Evaluation and social agencies and functions were informal and impressionistic in nature. So that was how it was perceived. So government appointed commission setups. The very popular and famous about this commission setups is Powys Commission. So when you say Powys Commission, they try to evaluate the result by the output or results of the product. So it is called a payment by results. So the teachers are being assessed with the outcomes of their students, performance of the students. So the Royal Commission of Inquiry into Primary Education was one of the projects, and the second one is 1882 Royal Commission on Smallpox and Fever Hospitals. So it means, in this case, in 1882 Royal Commission, hospitals should be open to everyone. So during the period, empirical approach to program evaluation started to grow. And as I have mentioned a while ago, there were also 2 developments which occurred. The first one, societies conducted publicized findings on a number of social problems. And like, for example, the school reports, the annual school reports, the organizational school reports. And then we have the committees of inquiry were established in response to these reports. Like the approaches has become bureaucratic. And then in USA, there was also uniformity because they believe that the engineering of people is as important as engineering of material. So craftsmanship had to yield with a uniformity. The craftsmen have to had to follow and conform with what was standardized by the state. So that means that technology of interchangeable parts. Mass production was encouraged. This practice foreshadowed Fredrick Taylor scientific management. So there was also formal evolution in 1845, which happened or started in Boston, and pupils test scores as a source of reference for evaluation. So they also had this essay writing. It was an issue that this phenomenon in Boston was first, the program evaluation was first politicized at that particular moment in time, because Ho and Mann tried to abolish the corporal punishment, making the pupils task force in their essays, their evidence to abolish this corporal punishment. So also jostles to rise formal evaluation in America existed or emerged, and the trend for comparative approach started to grow. Like educators should be, he also believed, Joseph Rice also believed that educators should be experimentalists and quantitative thinkers, and comparative approach should be used in program evaluation. So another development, accreditation movements expanded because of the trying to formalize the program evaluation, because of the comparative approaches that was introduced, newly introduced. Another development, of course, the accreditation movement has expanded, and evaluation then started to become professional. And regional accrediting firms were established in the local areas. So after this age, we have now the age of efficiency and testing. So administration is based on observation, measurement, analysis, and efficiency. So there emerged the personal evaluation by Fredrick Tyler. So we call it Tylerian approach. So the tests were objective type, and the tests were improved and developed. Departmental tests were developed to improve the efficiency of school districts and schools and other institutions. And measurement and evaluation were perceived synonyms. So measurement and evaluation were perceived and seen as they have similar meaning at that point in time. So what is Fredrick Taylor's Taylorism? So Fredrick Taylor's Taylorism is trying to come up with an idea or concept of personal evaluation, which continues to affect education and industrial systems up to now. So it's called scientific management. And scientific management is all about systemization, standardization, and efficiency. So when you say systemization, they're trying to make a system. They're trying to make the connections between groups of people working together with common interests, with common knowledge, with common cultures, trying to make up a bigger system. And when you say standardize, that means they're trying to make a standardized approach or a policy that would overrule a thing, that would be covering everyone, no matter how they are different with each other. So they also wanted to test the efficiency. And when you say efficiency, it is testing the effectivity of the people, how effective the people are, and how good the people, how excellent people are. So at that point in time, evaluating schools depended on the school and teachers' efficiency. So the expenditures of the school, the pupils dropout and promotion rates, these are the basis on how to evaluate a school. So percentage of students passing became the set standard for teachers' efficiency. Tests were used to make inferences on the effectiveness of the program. So surveys were significant tools at that moment in time. So they had the mock raking, and when you say mock raking, locals invite experts to expose defects and propose remedies in the world of education and industry. We're still doing that today, because an institution in our educational institution, we invite experts to conduct seminars, to be our speakers, And then we try to get there, we raise the problems in our institution, and we try to gain or ask for their advice or recommendations. So objective results then was used to gain public sympathy and fight public criticism. So localization of evaluation happened at the particular moment in time, but in the latter part of this period, it was changed into a state level. So the next would be Tylerian Age. Tylerian Age, the most famous person during this time was Ralph Tyler, who was considered the father of evolution. And he is focused on instructional objectives are based on behavioral terms, and also this serve as the basis and quality of the instruction. So the curriculum and the evaluation are put together and considered together as the basis for in trying to evaluate an institution. How good is the curriculum? How excellent the curriculum is? How practical and how applicable the curriculums are. So evaluation involves comparison between outcomes and objectives. So this use the criterion reference testing, and at this point in time, they perceive curriculum as a set of broadly planned school experiences designed and implemented to help students achieve behavioral outcomes. So when you say behavioral outcomes, that means it is a criterion reference testing. So there were also renewal of education reforms, and this renewal of education reforms is called progressive education movement, where pragmatism has been the philosophy and the tool employed was behavioristic psychology. So still they use this criterion-based testing, and they use the behavioristic approach in trying to make the learners learn or have their learning process develop. So what was prominent during this time was the 8-year study. It was a phenomenon, a study and differential between that of the traditional and progressive system. Since progressive education was introduced at that time, so it was conducted, this 8-year study was conducted to try to see the difference of the traditional way of teaching and the progressive system of teaching, so that they could at least come up with a proper program evaluation. And in this, intended and actual outcomes are compared. Intended outcomes and the actual outcomes are being compared. So after this period, here comes was the Age of Innocence, which started in 1945 until 1957. So this was the World War, and poverty and despair, of course, emerged, upgrading and expansion of educational offerings, personnel, and facilities. National optimism reigned because of the war, so they have to have this positive energy to overcome their fears and depression. So poverty also reigned, natural wealth were disregarded, of course. Industries and military provisions were highly developed, with lesser attention to our physical environment and its depletion. So that was the sad thing about it. There was also accountability. National funds on education were given little interest. So little interest were given on education, and Tyler's evaluation was adopted, still continued. Objective type tests were developed, and each test was designed to measure outcome. So experimental and community colleges were erected. A lot of colleges and educational institutions were erected. In America, they tend to forget the pains of the war, so they try to enjoy life more. But it was perceived that the works or the tasks they do were not special social purpose. At that point in time, apart from this one, is standardization of tests were also done, and tests were purchased. Principles of experimental design was also disregarded. So federal and state agencies were not deeply involved with program evaluation, resulted in the lack of dependence on taxpayers' money. At that point in time, education system was not funded, and it is a little bit away from the taxpayers' money. So taxpayers' money went to military expenditures and others. So after that stage, we have the age of development from 1957, after the war, years after the war, until 1972. So there were a lot of bill implementation, bill submission. Legislation was passed to improve instructions, and criterion reference testing was still used. Evaluation expanded into the industry as a profession. So focus on helping to meet a society need. So the evaluation did not only stop from measuring the performances of the teachers and the administrators and students at school, but it also extended to the industry, needs of the industry. So funds were used for curriculum development, especially in math, science, and foreign language. And educators were also evaluated through their efforts. And now, dependence of taxpayers, money for the support for funding for all of this curriculum development. And then what was very prominent about this one is the Sputnik launching in 1957. So they had the National Defense Education Act of 1957. So this National Defense Education Act of 1957 provided a new educational program. So they expanded, since it was already tied to industry needs or industry, it has an industry associations. I mean, this program evaluation. So expanded counseling, guidance services, and testing programs were delivered. New national curriculum development projects were launched. Reconceptualizing education as a process of gathering and reporting information were also emerging. And of course, war and poverty, 1965 gave equal opportunities to all citizens in terms of health and educational privileges. The state-of-the-art program evaluation was founded on the congruence between the outcomes and the objectives. So still behavioristic in nature, and it's still a criterion-based testing. So again, the outcomes are compared with the objectives. So the realm of theory and supposition in the field of program evaluation was changed into the realm of practice and implementation because it's expanded to the industrial needs or in the environment of the industry. So goals, inputs, implementations, delivery, and intended and unintended programs were looked into. So the 5 approaches used at that particular moment in time was the Tyler approach. And then we have the standardized test. Professional judgment was used. So we have, this is the accreditation in short. And then we have field experiments was used by the evaluators. Later in 1960s, the approach was not able to develop curriculum and non-responsive to the effectiveness of the approach. So because of this, their problems were encountered, and theory and supposition to the world of practice and implementation encountered 3 major problems. Tools and strategies were not employed and were not appropriate to task. Achievement gains were not measured. Standardized tests were also of local to local form from the practice, which is far different from the practice of Tylerian. So conflict emerged. And then we have educational evaluation processes and measures were pulled at that point in time because it doesn't see bright future, and it doesn't give appropriate strategies to appropriate task. So it was called the Great Illness. After this is the age of professionalization. So at this point in time, from 1972 to 1983, program evaluation was crystallized. The field of evaluation was amorphous and fragmented, had little stature and no political clout. So we all know that when there's no political clout, then it must not be very dynamic because everything is almost a system, and it is one system is associated with another. So one local is associated with another. And universities began to realize the value of evaluation, and because they began to value the process of evaluating the schools or other institutions and industrial companies, they began to institutionalize their policies and rules. And of course, the program on educational evaluation. So evaluation serve the information needs of the clients, address the central value issues, deal with situational realities, and also meet the requirements of probity and satisfy needs for veracity. So emerging approaches during this time were positivism, which deals with quantitative research or quantitative approach, and then we also have the phenomenological, which deals with the qualitative approach. These systems were popularized at that time. So generally speaking, the general impact of this period was there was still little development and there was still little change in evaluation, program evaluation. And now the last one, which we are enjoying right now, is the age of expansion and integration, which started in 1983 up to the present. So in USA, Reagan administration cut back the funds for evaluation. The 1980s education rebounded with their economy. So joint committee on standards for educational evaluation developed personal evaluation criteria. So cost cutting was emphasized. Professional associations were associated with evaluation standards. School charters, vouchers, institution privatization of institution were implemented. Competitions were used for improvement. International cooperation on evaluation emerged. So at this point in time, the conclusion on program evaluation, the gain over the past 8 years was impressive and dynamic. However, immaturity of some processes and strategies still emerge. We still lack evidence on the impact of evaluation to education. We need to improve research, training, and financial support programs for evaluation. And now that is already the big challenge for us as students of PhD to polish more of this program evaluation in the future, or we start polishing now through research. And the value of program education must be judged in terms of its actual and potential contribution to improving learning, teaching, and administration, health care, and health. And foremost, it is to improve the quality of life we have in our society. So we don't just, as educators, we help in trying to polish or restructure the program evaluation by not only trying to improve the lives of our students, of our constituents, of our co-teachers and administrators, but trying to also improve the life of the community and the whole nation as well. So I have here a very simple activity. So among the events practiced in the period of historical evolution of program evaluation, which phenomenon impacts you and your culture and style in teaching and testing your students' performance? Explain your answer briefly by including your personal experiences as part of your support. So I have here my scoring rubric. Content would be 25%, organization would be 25%, clarity would be 25%, and significance or relevance would be 25%. So here are my references. Thank you very much. First, get your facts. Then you get distort. Then you can distort them at your leisure. Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Maraming salamat sa pakikinig. God bless you.